All right. Welcome back to another episode yet again on the Just Music Podcast. We've got a super awesome video today and podcast all about the DNT Guitar Trio. This is the first time I've ever had a guitar trio on the podcast, and I'm super excited about it. We talked all about music and classical guitar and ensemble work and composers and all kinds of awesome topics on this episode. So I hope you really enjoy it, and welcome DNT Guitar Trio. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Just Music Podcast. We got a super awesome group of guys on the program today. We are talking all about guitar and the guitar trio of DNT Guitar Trio. So I would like to welcome these gentlemen onto the program. Welcome, DNT Guitar Trio.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited about this because as a guitar player myself, I get to talk with a lot of different guitar players, but not so many that are in the same academic pursuit as me as being classically trained. So I really like pulling other classical guitarists' brains and like see what they're working on and, just how their upbringing came. So I would like each of you guys to kind of give a little introduction about yourself and maybe a little origin story about some of your studies, where you studied at, and essentially how you guys all met as well. So whoever wants to go first.
You taking it?
Take it, George.
I'm taking it. Here I go. All right. I did my undergrad at the University of Towson in Baltimore, Maryland. So this was in 2009. I started playing guitar when I was 13, but I actually started reading music and all that when I was I was in high school, and I was the coolest kid in class because I was playing every Metallica song. Then my teacher was like, hey, you should learn how to read music. And started doing that. And then I got to community college, and then I started taking some courses, and I finally got in playing Lagrima into Towson. And it was a great experience, made a lot of cool people. And finally graduated in 2013 and took a 2-year break. And then I made my way out to Denver, where I got my master's there. And both schools are great. I definitely have a lot more to say about Denver in terms of a lot of things. And of course, I met these two lovely gentlemen, Jeff and Kirk, and that's where the birth of DNT Guitar Trio happened.
Wow.
So
yeah. It's funny. Before we get to you guys, Kirk and Jeff, I just want to say it seems like Lagrima is always the standard to the audition process. Is it kind of not it's I have always seen that time and time again when I've seen audition process. It's okay, the Turega piece, Adelita, Lagrima.
Yep, it was those two. It was Adelita and Lagrima. Those are the two pieces that my teacher gave to me, and I was like, oh, this is great. And I got into Towson playing those, and everyone. It's the first year everyone was playing Villa-Lobos and Brower, Etudes, and all the other kind of stuff. And I was kind of floored, and people were playing Bach Lute Suites and all that. So it was actually a crazy process for me because I wasn't so into the classical repertoire. So I got kind of blindsided by it. Like I said, everyone was playing all kinds of stuff I've never even heard of.
Right.
So fast forward to now, I love it, and I'm glad that I took my teacher up on those reading lessons, and I didn't just stick to playing Master of Puppets in my bedroom,
Right. Well, good for you. Awesome. How about you, Kirk?
Thanks.
So it's interesting. I don't think I ever played Lagrima until I've never performed it. I've never even played it in as much as a studio class. So I've just essentially just sight read it a few times in a row. But that probably didn't happen until I was out of undergrad. I just I've never really been into Targus music. I'm trying to think if I've ever performed any. I don't think that Recuerdos.
Come on. Yeah. You gotta send the target.
Funny
come on.
Oh, I played Capriccio in studio at some point. Never did it on a recital or a concert or anything. And even Recuerdos, the only reason I played it was I was working on another tremolo piece at the time, and I got a call from a friend of mine who was like, "Hey, there's this there's old guy in town who in his retirement just took up classical guitar and got really into it and recently passed away, and they want to play Recuerdos at his funeral. Do you know that?" And I was like, I mean, define no. Yeah, I can play it. And so that was my first time playing Recuerdos, was just I got a call at the beginning of the week, and there's a funeral this week. Can you learn recuerdos like now? I'm like,
Oh.
sure. But luckily, like the piece I was working on, the other tremolo piece, was way harder. So recuerdos was just a matter of like figuring out kind of what it was.
Sure.
But yeah, so I started out on classical when I was really young, maybe 8 years old or something, and was still kind of, I had the same like blind side as George getting into undergrad. I was like, whoa, people are like doing all this stuff. And I was playing for years before I heard Pepe Romero on a CD play the Romanza. It's like not like crazy stuff. He's not playing Rodriguez, like the Romanza. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know you could do that. And I already thought I was like pretty hot stuff because I could finger pick essentially. It's like, I'm playing Coruli, guys. Sweet. Whereas like, I don't know, other friends that I knew that played guitar, they saw like, you know, just like P and M and I like alternation, and they're like, whoa, that's really hard. I was like, I didn't know, that's what I always did.
Right.
So yeah,
so,
then
so I want you to talk about, because we have a commonality amongst ourselves because of Olivet. So I want you to talk about Olivet a little bit too, and the upbringing in that regard.
Yeah. So I actually, my first guitar teacher was Roger Humphrey, who taught at Olivet for a long time. And so I ended up in high school taking lessons with him through Olivet, kind of, in their, I don't know how formally it was like their college prep program, but essentially that's what it was. So yeah, it was just a good experience. I took lessons with Roger for a really long time. And I still like, maybe not a daily basis, but on a weekly basis, I'll think about things that we talked about in lessons, and they're still relevant. The teacher that the three of us had in Denver too is kind of the same way, although that's more recent, and it probably is like a daily thing. Even outside of guitar, I'm just like, the way I'm cooking these eggs right now, like, what would Jonathan have to say?
Wow.
This will make me a better person.
I would say make sure you're thinking forward and up. Make sure you're trying to release the tension in your back, and you're just letting it flow from yourself to the eggs. You know what I mean?
Just tell your wrist to tell the pan to flip the egg.
Jeez. That's a real methodology to that, huh?
Oh, he's a miracle worker.
And what about you, Jeff?
So I also, my origin story, I also started a little bit young, not quite as young as Kirk. I'd never imagine or dream of trying to put an 8-year-old through that. But no, I started when I was 11 or 12. And every day I look back and I realize how fortunate I was, because I actually learned guitar through my public school, my middle school guitar program. And it was teaching you how to read notes, teaching you rhythms from the first bit on a classical guitar. And I really stuck with that. And there was a big emphasis on ensemble playing and mixing instruments with guitar and everything else. So I look back and I realized that was very valuable. And even more valuable was going from that into a high school that offered guitar, learning with a doctor of guitar who studied with Adam Holtzman, and really just having him lay into me and really make me a good classical guitarist. So by the time I got to my undergrad, it wasn't, it was a bit less of a shock. I was kind of familiar with the culture. I was in it. I had been to competitions and stuff like that. But I'm from Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
So I was a bit of a little fish in a big fish in a little pond. And then going out into the wider world was the eye-opening experience for me, was sort of rubbing shoulders. I went to Florida State for my undergrad, and feeling like I was rubbing shoulders with these great players, and then just realizing, oh, these aren't just great players, these are just players. And I've really gotten a lot out of the community of guitarists, I feel, just because of I don't know, how great we all are.
Wow. That's really interesting, though, because, I mean, I've talked about this on programs before, that guitar is just not an instrument. It's such a rare occurrence to have it in a K through 12 situation. It's just not a prevalent thing, at least here in the States. I mean, I can't testify that to over the sea, but that's just thing in America is like, a lot of the times the programs that you have are choir based, that type of thing, symphonic band instruments, and then strings. Those are the big three things. So it's interesting because, like, when I first started in my undergrad, I remember like seeing all these players that had formal educations really by 6 or 7 years on top of me, you know, where as me as a guitar player taking, you know, 3 or 4 years of private lessons is not the same. You don't get the same experience that you do if you're playing for 6 or 7 years with the same kids in, you know, a more of an academic sense, where it's like there's a, you know, a method to how you're learning these things, where when you come into lessons, it's kind of like, you know, what do you want to work on today? You know, what are you interested in? And then it's just like, well, maybe I want to work on this, maybe I want to work on that. And there's not so much of like a set thing that you're focusing your attention on. So that's really cool to find that you had that experience. It's really awesome.
It varies a little bit state to state too. You mentioned like it's not super prevalent, but I know. So right now I live in Georgia, and I didn't realize it at first, but there's a huge number of public school programs. Some high school, but a ton in middle school. So like in Atlanta, I mean, I can probably think of half a dozen middle school programs like that I've visited. One of which the last time I was there, I went for the whole day, and I saw roughly 400 middle school guitar students.
Wow.
In a day, and they have that like all the time. It's wild.
Is that solely classical rep, or is it just guitar as in general?
It varies a lot from school to school.
Okay.
Some people will do. I know of one school that does it kind of in segments, so they'll do like part of the year is strictly classical. Part of the year, everybody does rock band. And in that sense, like not even everybody's playing guitar in that case. Like they'll have some people jump to drums, some do vocals. They'll do some acoustic stuff. They'll do like arranging. So it's so varied from school to school, which is cool, but it's very different than what you get in like a band or a choir world. Right.
Well, and I'm imagining that's probably like obviously there's certain curriculums that are enforced by each state's, you know, government saying, okay, you know, every single year you have to teach these grades of students, this and that. And I think music is a little more open-ended because it's just like, you know, a language arts credit or whatever. It's kind of like, well, it's just an arts credit, so just music. There's not like an emphasis on like, well, is it jazz band? Is it classical rap? You know, there's not. So I would imagine though, like for those teachers who work in that, would probably be kind of cool that they can almost really kind of create their own program and say, hey, you know, I want my students to work on this, or, you know, you have that ability to do that. Unlike if you're like an algebra teacher, well, we got to solve for X again today, you know. It's a little bit different. That's cool. Wow, awesome to hear all these experiences. So I want to try to get into a little bit about how you guys started. I know you guys said you all studied under the same professor. So why don't we talk a little bit about that and how your experiences were with this professor?
Should we just go in order again?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man. When I can take it back a little bit, if that's all right. When I auditioned for my master's, I auditioned at 3 places: Ithaca, Roosevelt University in Chicago, and then Denver. And I had great experiences at all 3. But of course, an everlasting experience was at Denver, and it was all just because of Jonathan Leithwood. And the lesson was just amazing. We were working on 995 Lute Suite, I think just a prelude, and I learned so many things in that 1 hour that, you know, and I had, you know, I used this as an audition to get into the place, into DU, and I was playing it for 2.5 years, and the lesson that he gave to me then was so eye-opening. And he was at the same time using so many metaphors, and he was helping me think about it in ways I've never thought about before. And he kept using this one metaphor about thinking of like a church choir that like says amen and like takes 2 steps forward every time like you come to like a big cadential moment, like in the prelude or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it sounds really funny. It's a little easier if I were to explain it like with a guitar in my hand, but like he was just blowing my mind. And as a teacher, basically giving an introductory lesson to a potential student like that, I mean, he did such a great job because I actually got a full scholarship at Ithaca.
Wow!
I got a full ride. I got a free ride, and I was really close to going there. I mean, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm from Maryland, and it was about 6-hour drive. So mom and dad were really happy about me going there. But Denver was the last place I went to. and Denver was not a free ride. I can say that. And but after that lesson, I was just floored. And at the same time, I was staring at the Colorado Rockies. So I was just like, I was kind of like mesmerized. And just everything about him. I mean, these guys know as well. He has so much to give. And the amount of knowledge you get just from one lesson, and then you fast forward all these years. I mean, I recorded all my lessons with him. I recorded all of them with a video recorded. And I mean, I don't watch him as much as I really should, but man, he just changed my world, honestly. And enough for me to say no to a full scholarship.
Right. Wow.
And yeah, it's that much, really. And then I think he did this with everyone, just like every teacher does, I'm assuming, but he develops this relationship with you, and he really brings out the best guitarist in you, like individual, like works on your strengths and your weaknesses. And yeah, he's really into the Alexander technique. I don't know if you know much about that, but it's just a lot more than just a guitar lesson at the end of the day. And I think these other guys can talk about that too. So yeah, Jonathan Leafwood.
Yeah,
I miss that guy, man. I miss that guy.
There's definitely I could add to that, and I suppose for me, Jonathan. So Jonathan was my fourth teacher, and all of my teachers taught me something very, very valuable. And I suppose in the progression of teachers, it went like this: my first teacher taught me how to play guitar. My second teacher taught me how to be good at guitar. My third teacher, Bruce, at FSU, he really taught me how to be a guitarist, really gave me more of that. But Jonathan really opened me up and made me a better musician, like in the most total sense that I could think of. Because when I arrived at DU and I was auditioning and everything like that, I really was just a guitarist. I was in that guitar mindset. I was only about the guitar. I had only ever played with other guitarists except for once when I played with a flutist friend of mine in undergrad, but I was still getting by. I was doing well enough. And like George said, that first lesson with him that I had at my audition, which I will say not every teacher does. Jonathan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Jonathan is generous for sure, not just to his students, but to everyone he interacts with. And it was the first place I auditioned for my master's. And I had already kind of had an idea of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. But after the audition and the lesson with him, I said, if I get in to Denver, I had no offer. I was on the plane ride back. I said, if I get in, I'm going. I knew how expensive it was. I looked at the tuition prices, but I said, you know what, fuck it. Like this, I could tell that was what I needed in my musical studies next.
Amen, brother.
It was true. It was what I needed.
And I remember, because I auditioned the same day as Jeff.
That's right. That was when we met.
I think right after you, which sucked. Because I could hear you in the room. And I remember sitting in the, it wasn't orientation, but it was that, all audition-y meeting kind of thing. Not just guitarists, but, everybody. And I sat next to Jeff because I saw he had a guitar case, and we were talking. And the previous teacher, or previous head of the department at DU was Ricardo Isnaola, who's, a big deal, and he was the reason that DU was on the map for me.
That's right.
And then so in some exchanges I found out that he wasn't going to be staying on there for much longer, but I'd met with him, I'd taken a lesson with him and Jonathan as well, and I was like, even if they were both there, both great lessons, both awesome guys, but kind of would rather study with Jonathan, but that depends on me getting in. And so I was talking to Jeff, and I was like, so you heard, Ricardo's probably not going to be here when we start. And Jeff didn't realize that, and I was like, yes, maybe he won't want to come here. It's even if, so he'll, probably beat me in the audition, but then he won't come, so I can still get in.
Yeah, so that must have happened before the lesson, because I came... It was specifically because of Ricardo. Both Ricardo and Jonathan's name were on the website, on the website. But of course, I didn't recognize Jonathan Leafwood. I recognized Ricardo from his method book, Guitarologus. And my teacher, Bruce, when I asked him about it, was like, oh, yeah, I know Ricardo. You should totally go apply. And it was actually it was a very hard year at DU because there was a lot going on because of his retirement and everything else happening.
Yeah.
I actually, I didn't hear back and I didn't know that Ricardo was retiring until I was sitting down in my audition, like, with guitar in hand. Jonathan and Laura Husbands were they're auditioning me, and I'm getting ready to play, and they go, "So sorry to be telling you now, but Ricardo's not going to be here next year." It turned out more than okay.
And based on some stories that I've heard, particularly Chaz Aguado, who's another guitarist that went there, great guy, who's back in Maryland now, and he auditioned the year before us, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember him talking.
Not the year, but yeah.
Keep 2 years?
Sorry.
He was there.
No. I think the semester or the quarter before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I just remember him talking about, he like played a scale in the audition, and I won't do the Ricardo impersonation as well, but essentially what it was like, well, that was fine. What happens if you step on the gas a little? And I would love to have seen that happen in your audition, Jeff.
What did you audition with, Jeff?
What did I audition with? I had 3 pieces, actually, that I was auditioning with in that round. I was playing the Bach fugue, the G minor fugue in A minor. Was that 1001? I don't know. I'm a
I think so. 1000.
bad guitarist. Anyways, I was playing the fugue. I was playing Meritz's Variation Mignone from the Bardenklang cassette. And I was particularly inspired by Pavel Steidel's recording of it, which, if you haven't heard Pavel Steidel play Meritz on, there's a album that he did playing on a period instrument. I think it might be a period-based instrument. I doubt it's I don't think it's from the 19th century. But I digress. I was playing that, and I was also playing the Usher Waltz. And I got through the Bach and the Meritz. They didn't let me play the Usher Waltz, but I guess they didn't need to hear it. Yeah.
I would love to share what I played, because it's kind of funny. Because I played the Prelude and just a Prelude from 995, and I played like at the draw, and they only made me play just like I don't know, 30 seconds of each movement. Like I started, I got really into it, and I started playing the first one, and they said, "Oh, that's enough." I was okay. and then I started the second one, I was really into it because it's like that kind of like slow one, and oh no, and then I started the third one, same thing, and then I actually had Kuya Baba, and I played it, and like I was really working on that piece hard, man, because I was playing it for years leading up to that. I was always kind of really into that, the tuning and all that, and the presto, it's like your hands flying all over the place. But I don't know, like a year later, Laura's like, "Oh, George, I can never forget when you played Kuya Baba for your audition. I hate that fucking piece. It's just bloody D minor for 20 minutes." And it was pretty funny. And ever since then, I've been thinking about revisiting that piece, but I can't. It's one of those pieces people play, and you're like, oh, it's like, no offense to like Astorius or something like that. When you see someone play Astorius, you're just like,
yeah,
like, are you done yet? Are you done? But anyways, I figured I'd share that with you guys. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about your guys's projects and what you guys do as a guitar trio. Would you guys like to talk a little bit about that?
Heck yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you go ahead, Kirk, because Kirk's kind of like the center of this all, I think.
Kirk is the hyper organized one of us.
I moved all of my like normal computer stuff out to my living room right now because my desk is just like trashed right now. I have like a 3-inch binder of trio music that's open with pages that are not even clipped in, just like mashed around. Another trio piece that we're working on like spread across my desk. My binder of solo music. It's chaos. So if you guys think I'm organized, we're in trouble.
I guess hyper-organized may have been the wrong word. He's the mover of the group. How's that?
He is the facilitator.
Okay.
That's fair. I'm the one that like their biggest job besides playing beautifully is to tell me no. Um, like, so we had this problem. Almost, it wasn't a problem. Almost had a problem in our last tour when I was like, "Hey guys, we have like an early concert this day. We can do another concert that day." We already there was another day. We had two concerts anyway. I don't remember which one happened first, but I was like, yeah, we can squeeze in two concerts. Like, I've mapped it out. Like, this gives us like just enough minutes to drive from this place to this place. Like, it's fine. The times work out. It'll just be a busy day. And then like the week before, I was on the phone with the organizer of the series, and he was like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys should be able to get into the space a little early. The doors open at, I think it was like 10 a.m. Doors open at 10 a.m. Oh, that's Central Time. And I just went, oh, I forgot about times. And it was the two. You guys remember this, right?
That's going from Alabama to back to Georgia, right?
Yeah.
The museum. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
Horrible,
we had
man.
like, I thought we had like, some wiggle room. We made the second concert, but I don't think they were super happy with the amount of time that we got there to spare.
We had about an hour less time than we had calculated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked out.
It was,
but it was,
Yeah, so
it
it was
was
a show in Alabama, in Auburn, actually. And then that night we were playing at the resort in Georgia, yeah?
Mhm.
Like Eastern Georgia. And I remember it was in Auburn. It's about an hour from my hometown. So I told my family, my brother showed up. And yeah, I had to tell him, like, hey, thanks for coming. I have literally no time to stay.
Bye. Yeah.
Yeah, good to see you.
Yeah.
So it
So
was a great concert, though. That was fun.
how do you guys come up with like the pieces of selection that you're interested in playing? I would imagine. I mean, I've only played in I've never really done a trio with guitar. So like, how do you come up with the music for that? Is there music specifically geared towards trio guitars? I mean, I'm imagining that you're playing different parts as well. It's not just all playing in unison, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although the first piece that we ever played, which
The Dodson, right?
yeah,
I'm remembering there's a part that's in unison. Yeah.
yeah, there's all three guitars playing the same notes and the same rhythms, just single notes, and we got ripped apart on that because this was when we were in school. The way we like ended up playing together, I think it's really kind of ironic because I had a lot of bad experience playing with other guitarists. Not like that I didn't get along with them. I just like a bunch of guitars playing together is like a bad idea, and I stand by that statement now. We do it anyway, but it's like if somebody else is like, oh, I think I should like get involved in chamber music. Like I'm thinking about doing a guitar quartet. My response would be dope.
Yeah, sidebar, I think you should start referring to us as the exception that proves the rule rather than we suck, but we do it anyways.
That's fair. Yeah. And so I get to DU, and our first quarter, they're like, okay, you got to play like in 2 chamber groups. And I was like, cool, I have this really cool harp and guitar piece I want to do. So they like set that up, and they're like, do you have something else? Or if not, we'll assign you. And I was like, yeah, assign me, it's fine. And they're like, okay, you'll play with the other 2 incoming masters guitarists. And I was like, no! I hate that.
And we're all what's it called? Graduate assistants.
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that right? Yeah. So they kind of put all of us together in one
Okay.
trio. So yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, it was fun, but I had no intention of like getting a lot out of the experience other than just like hanging out with these guys. And then it turns out like by the time Laura kind of finished beating that piece over our heads that semester, like we played together really well. And so like we figured like, oh, okay, this went really well. Let's do this again next semester. And I was like, okay, like 10 more weeks. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
just 10.
Yeah. And of course it took us, the next piece she gave us is we still play. And it took us close to a year to get, I think.
Mhm.
We got the first movement in 10 weeks, but that was a stretch. And then, of course, like even on the Dodgson, it was a week before the concert. And do you know where this is going, guys?
Yeah.
Do you remember who started
I'm
that
a little fuzzy.
conversation?
Yeah, of course you're a little fuzzy, which is ironic. I believe we were in a we were in rehearsal.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is, like I said before, I had played with guitars before up to this point. That had been kind of like my main thing. And I'd done a lot of ensemble playing since I started playing guitars. So I find that after I play a piece of ensemble music for a while, it's just memorized. It just kind of happens. And I like playing music memorized in an ensemble. So I believe it was a week and a half-ish before the concert. And we're in rehearsal and things going on. I go, hey, guys, let's play it memorized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And of course,
Okay.
George memorizes everything like that. Like, you could tell measure numbers off the top of your head.
It's one of my strengths. He's not lying. It's just true.
Yeah,
Wow.
George actually memorizes it. I get the good like muscle memory where if I start a piece, I can just finish it. But if you tell me to start from a note or a measure, I'm like, huh?
You know,
What?
that's so funny that you also have that same exact thing. Cause like when I was in my undergrad and doing my lessons with my teacher, he'd be like, all right, we need to start right here. And I'm like, can we start like 2 measures before that? And I have that same difficulty for whatever reason. Like if I want to get to that point that you're wanting to work on, I have to play it from the beginning. It's really hard for me to deconstruct and work backwards.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one.
No,
I think
That's a
everybody at
Jonathan
some
thing.
point.
That's a Jonathan thing, though. Jonathan would be like,
lot.
play from there. And it was like of course a Bach element or something like that. I'm like, no, can I actually go a little before that? And he'd be like, nope, play from there. And I'm like, oh, and it would just fumble your way through it. But
Or he'd
yeah, I
just
don't.
he'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, you can play from 2 measures earlier, but play it in F major.
But that really tests your strength as a musician to really test you in terms of how well do you know the piece in and out.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it's just like this is what has been so common in my upbringing as far as being taught is it's not just enough of playing the dots on the page. It's enough of knowing it, where the musicality is, where are the phrases within that, and can you, how could you manipulate the phrase in a different way? Because it's just like if you listen to, for example, I know this is a really, really common piece that's done as like Julia Florida is like really, really well known, right? If you listen to 3 different people play it, you're going to hear 3 different versions of it, but that's what I like about music as well is it's just like, I like listening to other people's interpretation and it's like, oh, okay, John Williams is a little bit, quicker there,
Yeah.
Epi's a little slower there, it's interesting how that works, same music, different variations on it,
Yeah, and Jonathan really did work a lot on the problem of memorization because it's a difference between I was really good at memorizing pieces, but it made me realize there was a lot of the music that I didn't know, and that really is the big difference. If you don't know the music that you're playing as well as you think you do, you're not going to be able to just pick out a point, and so there was growth in there.
Yeah. And I think too is like when you really get comfortable with memorizing a piece and really knowing it in the in and outs of it, I feel like that's when you can really start to apply the musicality behind it. Because for me, when I'm in a concert setting and I'm playing a piece, and I also have a struggle with memorizing music, I'll be the first one to admit that. And I've noticed that if I take away the music and I memorize it, then I start to develop the musicality and I play it so much more
That's
better
right.
than you do if I'm looking at the page. I'm like, okay, I gotta figure out where I'm at. Okay, did I hit that right? Did I get that rhythm right? And if I got it in my mind, then I already know what the roadmap of the piece is because I have it internally, and I'm not relying on a page of paper to look at it,
That's funny how it works like that. Because this is a good segue into the last time we were together. Kirk actually transcribed a piece by Ravel, and awesome transcription.
Yeah.
And I worked on that thing like crazy. So this is like our second tour together, right? And first of all, like I worked on it so hard, and I thought I was gonna get together with the guys, and the guys were gonna be like, oh, they're gonna be memorized already, and they're gonna be playing it so well, especially Kirk because Kirk transcribed it. But no, I got there and I knew the parts better than they did. But anyways, I mean, this piece is so difficult and so demanding, but a lot of fun. But we actually start playing it even better. I remember the first night. I don't know, maybe the second or third. But there was one moment where we just clicked, and we didn't have the music in front of us. And some of our parts are kind of scary. I remember, I think Jeff's part is just treacherous, honestly. But
Treacherous.
yeah, and I think as soon as we took the music away, it just kind of clicked more, and we were able to be a lot more musical about it because we're just so immersed in the notes on the page, and we're just reading and we're going along with it, and and you take it away and we're like, oh, it's music, guys, let's have some fun with it. Let's breathe. Breathe. But like they said, that memorizing for me in general has always been an easy thing, but I mean, there's always that moment where you're performing a concert. Everyone's had those memory slips where you just blank. It doesn't matter how good you have that piece memorized, that part memorized that you played 1,000 times. You're suddenly in a concert and it's gone. You're like, oh, what was I playing?
Yeah, I don't think you really researched the musician until you played a concert where you've forgotten half of a piece of music and you just have to stop and say it's done.
Yeah.
Your time.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, for real. Because it's just like, oh, and then you can't like wear it like, oh, I just messed that up. And it's really bad when it's like a piece where it's like so well known too. It's like everybody knows this piece front to back to front. So like some of those times you're just like, yeah, I'll just end it there.
And it's worse when it's a piece that you have played too, and you're like, I've listened to the practice room so many times, and just I slipped somewhere and it just all went away.
Like that was an unexpected cadence right there. I didn't know it ended there. Oh, that's my take on it.
My favorite is the internal dialogue that goes, whoa, that part went really well. I can't believe I pulled that off. That sounds so awesome. I hope somebody's oh crap, where am I at?
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh, you're totally right, man. Oh my God. It's like, this is going so well. Oh, I sound great. And then you're like, and then you're making all kinds of mistakes. Yeah.
Worse when there's a spot and you're ramping up to the spot and then you hit it. And you're like, oh, good, finally, that was done. And just the rest of it is gone after that. It's just a slop fest.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. So true. So true.
I want to ask about this is a pretty broad question, but like, did you guys feel like when you were wanting to go to school for specifically guitar in classical regard, did you find that you had difficulties in finding a program and finding what, I mean, it seems to me that you guys are all obviously would never change what your master's working with your teacher. But I know specifically for me, when I was looking at getting into grad school and stuff, I had a really difficult time finding classical guitar programs, like, period. Because it's just like, almost like there are programs out there, but everything for the guitar world now, especially in the Americas, is so based in the jazz route. And it just kind of stinks that sometimes, like, as guitar players, you either have to choose this. Do I want to study jazz? Do I want to study classical? If I'm going in a performance aspect, I should say, not just music in general. I mean, if you're going music theory or, music composition and history, that's different. But as far as performance, you're really kind of at this crossroads, if you will, where it's like, jazz or classical. And then to me, it's like, I'm so glad that I decided to really focus the time on classical, because I mean, I do play in jazz bands, and I feel like my classical upbringing has allowed me to be able to do that. And I can't say if I went and studied jazz from the beginning, I would be able to cross over to classical, because I think classical is so much more challenging. Because for me, and I know if there's jazz elitists or purists out there, I'm going to make a huge generalization, but for me,
piss them off.
All I'm doing in jazz ensemble is comping. Chug, 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 chug. There's not a lot of intricacy in that. Unless I'm doing a solo arrangement, then it may be different. But rarely do I ever get the melody lines. That's always taken care of by the horns. And I'm just comping the entire time. And to me, when I wanted to study, I was like, I want to be able to play the instrument as a solo instrument. And I saw all this classical stuff, and I'm like, dude, this is so badass. Like, I don't have to have a whole band to back me. I can do it all by my own. I can go to the gigs on my own and take all the cash. I don't have to split it. So what is did you guys find difficulties in that as well, as like, when you were saying, well, because there's kind of this, snobby kind of mentality too. It's like, oh, well, I study classical. Well, I study jazz. Do you ever find that when you cross other, guitar players that may be in that other camp? I know I asked like 3 questions in one question.
It's a broad enough question for sure. And I think it's It's hard to answer that so broadly because I can really only talk about my experience at my respective music schools that I went to. And I went to Florida State, which is a big music school. I think there's like 1,000 music students or something like that. It's so big that I was able to really almost exclusively interact with guitarists. Like the studio itself, when you included non-performance majors, up to 30 people, and it was a really great experience like that. But at DU, it was a bit smaller, about 300 people total, and it's in one small building, one small part of a building. And the jazz and the classical, they overlap a lot. They interact with each other a lot, and I gained a lot more respect for jazz musicians and jazz guitarists in general as a student at DU. And I think that we could do more sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, reaching out to our, other genre brethren, because I think that's one thing that the classical guitar kind of is in danger of, is sort of, being too exclusive unintentionally, but that elitism is absolutely there. And,
Yes.
If we sit here and we say, oh, there's only one right way to do it, and we just totally reject anything else, then that's how we, keep ourselves from getting new ideas, fresh blood, and ultimately stall our growth as, a group, and that's how it dies. So
Right.
I think that there is that feeling, and I wish there wasn't that feeling of, oh, I play jazz guitar, or, oh, I play metal guitar, so, I play, look at all these fast, look how cool I can sweep. Oh, why would I ever want to play classical or jazz, or why would I ever want to pick up an acoustic guitar and play chords? It's like that all, it's all the same instrument, it's all the same blood, and the more genres you learn on the guitar, the better guitarist, the better musician you become. And that's, it all feeds into itself. The more you get out there, the better it's going to be.
I wish I would have studied a little bit more jazz at some point. I have no desire to be a jazz guitarist now, but actually, Justin, like some of the stuff that I see on your channel, of just like whipping out these arrangements really fast, I feel like a jazz guitar background is going to be helpful in that. And then, like, super practically, this morning I was practicing the last movement of the Ascensio Collectici Intim, and there's one chord in there, and somehow in like 20 plus years of playing guitar, I have managed to never really need to bar with a finger other than my index finger. Like, there's been times where like other people might have, and I just worked around it because I hate doing that. And in this case,
that's so true. I know exactly what you mean, man.
There's this one, I need to bar two strings
with the
my
third
ring
finger, right?
Yeah. Do you know the piece?
I don't know the piece, but it's a minor seventh chord, like in root position or whatever. That a lot of jazz players play with like just like 2 and 3 like this, and they bar.
Oh yeah, you're looking at a minor 7 chord, so that you have the root with your second finger. And
root with second finger. Yeah. So like drop 4 voicing, and like you play it like that, and like I can't do it like that. I play it like with first finger.
Like,
yeah, I have to, or I'll just bar with the first finger, just like slap it on there. But I know exactly what you mean, Kirk. Oh, I just throw a caper on that. But I know what you mean, Kirk, for sure.
And this one spot, I haven't even fully committed to doing the ring finger bar on that spot, because there's like, it goes by. You guys, I have my guitar here. You probably know this piece, right? Does that one sound familiar? So it's like, it's in one of those arpeggios. It's in that. And it's like, if I just play a wrong note in there, like, who's gonna call me out on it, Like, I'll just change the chords slightly. Nobody's gonna notice. It goes by that fast, and it's done.
Now that I know, I'm gonna call you out every time.
Oh!
You actually just played a wrong note just now, actually.
Yeah, that last 16th note there, I think it was sharp. It needed to be natural.
Justin knows.
Well, I'm gonna expect viewers to, like, if I ever post a video of that, or they happen to end up at one of my concerts where I play that, just like pick on that spot.
Right. It's like, I remember that podcast episode. But I think the big thing with my YouTube channel, and like me trying to start this, is like kind of like what you were saying, Jeff, is there's this disconnect, right? And for me, like when I first started playing guitar, I thought the epitome of great guitar playing was to be able to solo and do all this stuff and whatever. And then I quickly realized that to me, the epitome of playing guitar well was, for lack of a better way of phrasing, is basically playing the guitar as if it was a piano, where you have your bass, your accompaniment, and your melody. You know, playing the guitar as a solo instrument, not necessarily just like strumming and singing over top of it. And I respect that folky type stuff, and I enjoy that. And there's a time and a place for that. But for me, you know, I was always wanting to be able to do more with the guitar. You know, you'd see these guys on YouTube and stuff that would do these solo arrangements of all these like pop songs and stuff. I'm like, how do these guys do that? You know, and then like I started really digging deep into the classical guitar, and I started to realize like the possibility behind the instrument. Because, and maybe this is true for you guys as well. Have you ever had an occasion where you've been at a gig or you've shown a family member a piece that you're working on and you play it for them and they're just like, I have never seen the guitar ever played that way. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. And when I did my undergrad recital, and I come from a lot of family that's not musical, and they saw me doing this firsthand. They're like, Justin, they're like, I didn't even know the guitar was able to even do that. Like, and they were just so mind blown, because they think, you know, that the epitome of playing good guitar is like Jimi Hendrix or something like that, which arguably great player. Like, I'm not taking that away from him, but it's just like, it's a totally different realm of musical ability, you know, and being able to do that. And I think for me, that has always been the top tier, is being able to play the instrument where you're playing all the parts. And then hence for me, that's how I got so intrigued with classical guitar, because I would see these guys sit on stage and they would give a whole concert all by themselves and they would be playing all the parts.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's how it hit me as well. I heard my teacher at I was at a community college before I went for my undergrad. He was playing La Catedral, and I was like, man, what is that? Like, he's playing third movement. I was like, what is happening in that piece of music?
Right.
And I was like, how do you do that? Because I was actually the same. I started off with solos and big rock and metal background, and then I heard someone play like that, and then he was like, one day you can learn this, but you learn Lagrima in the meantime. But which is still cool, because you're playing accompaniment, melody, and bass and all that, but it's just like a preschool version of the repertoire out there. But there's some pieces especially, I mean, that really blow people away, and I think I get it a lot, especially people who have a quote unquote untrained ear. They're like, oh, how are you doing like in the bass at the same time, and how are you doing all that? And it's just simple answers, just practice. But I know exactly what you mean. It's funny that you say that. It's funny how all guitarists think alike.
Yeah. Well, and it's just like those experiences, though, I really made me want to go into music, and specifically this classical rep and stuff, because I feel like people just aren't aware that this stuff exists. So for my lifelong goal is to really kind of like Segovia. I mean, like in Segovia's lifetime, right? I'm not trying to say that I'm trying to be the next generation of Segovia, but Segovia, I mean, it is very well respected, where he's like trying to pull respect to make guitar a concert instrument, right? They're trying to say, okay, guitar can be a concert instrument. It can be a respected instrument in this regard. And that's what he kind of really dedicated his life to, being able to do these types of things. And like, if you think about Segovia, I mean, he was around, I mean, not that long ago. I mean, he was still walking, I mean, so we're not talking, centuries of time here, I mean, very, 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 modern time, really. I mean, when he's giving concerts and stuff. And so that's always been like my passion too, is like, I want to showcase really what the guitar can do, and it's beyond just a chordal based instrument. It's not just an accompanying instrument. You can do anything with it. The guitar is just so badass. I love the guitar. Like, seriously.
Amen, brother.
God, dude.
That. I think one of the biggest problems that I noticed, like what Segovia did like 2 or 3 main things. And the first thing I think is important is that he was unashamedly opinionated.
Oh, yeah.
Overwhelmingly, unashamedly, assholedly opinionated. And he said guitar is the greatest instrument, and he took that and he said, I'm going to show the world. And then what he did was he opened the guitar up to new audiences. I believe he was the first person to transcribe the Chaconne, and everyone thought he was crazy. They went to this concert, they saw Chaconne on the program. They were like, who is this madman who's trying to play a piece for the solo violin on the plinky, dinky guitar? And then he did it.
And those sausage fingers, too.
And those meaty, Tony fingers. Good stuff. And so that's what, he did that and he did that. And then he opened it up to even more audiences and showed that the guitar could do even more by getting other non-guitarist composers like Ponce and Tedesco to write. These people that already had name recognition to write for the guitar. He really did revolutionize the way that the world thought about the guitar. But what I think we've done wrong since then is we've sort of, it goes back into that whole, we've isolated ourselves. We've made our club exclusive, right?
Yeah.
We've got to the point now where we look at Segovia academically, and we look at all the music too academically, and we say, what more can we do to this instrument technically and academically, where it becomes an issue where we're not longer playing for the people and we're not trying to open up to new audiences. I think there's too many guitarists, classical guitarists, playing for guitarists that are thinking about guitarists and thinking about how they curate their concerts for academics and not how to make music that people want to hear, or they're not able to take the music and relate it, because and you know, everything that has come since Segovia for the classical guitar, I mean, it's beautiful in such a magnificent way that I connect to, and I can connect to because of my journey with the instrument. But if I'm trying to connect this music to someone who hasn't had my journey or any experience whatsoever personally with the guitar, then, you know, how do I do that? And the biggest way to do that is to find a point of relation. And I think that we've become so insular in the past 40, 50 years that we've lost a lot of relation to the outside musical world and to the world in general. And, you know, we're talking about like what we're doing, what our projects are. You know, I think my main goal, I wish I had like more concrete goals, is to just really open up that audience and to open up people's minds to be willing to accept other, you know, music from different places through different media. So like when Kirk transcribed the Ravel, it's an awesome piece of music. It expands the repertoire, and particularly for Guitar Trio, which there's not a whole lot out there for us. And beyond the transcription, we're trying to, you know, find more composers to commission music for. I believe we have 3 or 4 pieces written for us on the last tour.
Harrison, Johnson,
Wenner,
Ravel, Wenner, yeah.
So yeah, we have 3 pieces written for us, particularly, and I want to do more of that. I want to do more genre mixing. You know, I want to play jazz music in a classical guitar trio setting, because
I think used to that bar.
Yeah. I'm gonna practice those with the 2. And
you know, there's a bit of jazz in the Clinjons though. All those chordal harmonies are really dense. So those are jazz. Guys. Yeah, exactly, man.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I mean, I think this is a commonality again. I mean, we kind of touch base on this, but it's just like guitar players. And you mentioned like Kirk, you said I never wanted to play with guitar players, and I honestly don't blame you, because and that's not a hit on you guys at all. This is just a generalization, but guitar players are just bad to play with, because they have a huge ego that is so overshot that it's ridiculous. They're like, oh yeah, I can play this, and it's like, dude, like there are way better musicians out there that can do way more than, you know, oh well, I can play blah 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 blah, you know, I can play the solo to this song or that song. It's just like there's so much more beyond that, and it's like guitar it's so competitive, and it's like I always ask the question, and I've never really got a concrete answer from anybody either, but it's just like, do piano players have this beef between one another? Do violin players and string players have the same type of mentality and beef that guitar players do? I just think it's a guitar player thing. It's like it's become such a blood sport. Like, well, I can play this faster. Well, I can do this. I can do that. I can play that. You know, it's just like we kind of talked on that, but it's just like, why is that such a thing? Is it just because of popular culture, you think? And just the because the guitar is kind of a popular culture instrument, you know? I don't know.
Rock stars, man. You know?
Who knows? Because I mean, when I walked into undergrad, I thought I was the most badass guitar player on earth, man. I was the coolest dude in that room, and it was like 15 other people, and I was like, let's do this. And I was like, what's a master class? This is funny. I was like, oh, we're all gonna play for each other. That's cool. And this one girl got up there and she played just 996, just slayed it, just start to finish. And I think at the time, I was playing some other pieces, not as difficult as that. So I think you get put in your place no matter what. And I think at this point, 32, I'm like really grounded. There's everything out there that's always going to squash you. I have a really funny example right now. I'm playing a gig in like 2 weeks or so, and I'll admit it, I love "My Heart Will Go On" by the theme by from Titanic, and I've always been really into it. And I figured out how to play it in the actual key, and even with a big key change at the end, I'm really proud of it. Right, I kind of made my own kind of arrangement of it, and my wife and I were watching this one YouTube guy. His name's Alexander Mishko. I don't know if you ever heard of him. Okay. He's one of those. He does the version of "Careless Whisper" by George Michael when he's like tuning it as he's playing. It's just like
yeah.
He's like changing. Anyways, he has this one video of him playing "My Heart Will Go On," and it's like nuts. If you guys look him up, this guy is crazy. He's like one of those guys that he does everything. Like he does like the rhythm. And like all the harmonics, and like it just sounds really crazy. And my wife watched that, she's like, wow, that's really good. And as soon as I got back to playing my version, I was like, wow, I feel like nothing now. And it's that beef. And it's the same thing when you're on Facebook and you're looking up like a really talented guitar player. You'll see in the comments that maybe 75% of the people commenting are guitar players. And maybe half of them are like, oh my God, that was amazing. Oh, they played so well. And the other half are like, shit player.
Yeah, serious.
He sucks. Oh my God, you see what he did there? And I do it too. When I watch this guy Alexander play, man, this guy's amazing. This guy's at Nam. This guy is a bajillion views on YouTube. And I watched him, and I was like, he's not doing that part right. He sucks. And like, it's blood, man. Like you said, it's a blood sport. It's just like, I'm better than you. I swear to God, I'm better than you.
Yeah, but we all got to be
humbled
at some point, like if we can't, because that's the thing. There's for every piece that you want to learn, there's some 8-year-old kid in Asia who's already perfected it.
Yeah, right. Seriously. Wow. Well, I want to you kind of already talking a little bit about some of your solo gigs and stuff like that. I got a couple more questions here, but I would like you guys to talk a little bit about your solo projects as well. I mean, obviously you guys do the trio, but you're obviously doing a lot of solo gig work as well. So you guys want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Sounds like you got the soonest gig coming up.
Yeah. I mean, I'm playing like just background music. I don't know how I got the gig, but it's just word of mouth travels, I guess. And but it's just for an hour, and I'm not really playing back breaking repertoire or anything like that. I'm playing, I've had Granada in the pipeline for years, and La Catedral, and I play a lot of Carcassi. I just put repeats on everything. Yeah. And it's so good. I'm playing 5 right now. 5 of those etudes. Man, they're so good. Mm-hmm. They are so lately. Yeah, they're so good. And like so I just like throw repeats at. You got 25 minutes of music right there. But I mean, I haven't been having that many solo gigs. I've been living in Denmark. It'll be 3 years next week, actually. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. And I've had a couple of gigs. I played at a couple different churches, which were really cool. And I've kind of hosted my own gig, and it's kind of like a lecture recital, and I'm talking about the music. And I did, mostly the stuff I learned in my graduate degree, and like a few arrangements, quote unquote, that I did myself. But I was a little more busy in the past, like the first 2 years, but I haven't been that busy lately with the solo stuff. I'd like to be a little more busier, but honestly, just due to this whole pandemic thing that's going on, I mean, I haven't worked since March 13th, and I'm not going to work until August So it's crazy. So I actually have so much time. You would think you have all the time in the world to get all the gigs you want, but I mean the world's kind of just shut down right now.
Right.
So I ain't playing any gigs anytime soon. But I play in bands, but we're not really playing any gigs right now either. So
And what kind of band do you play in, George?
oh, I knew he was gonna ask this. I play in two groups here in Denmark. When I first moved here, and to rewind a little bit, I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I love Slash. He's the reason I play guitar. He's the reason I play Lagrima. No, I'm kidding. When I first I was like 8 years old and I was like air guitaring in the mirror. That's how much I love Guns N' Roses. When I moved here, I saw them live in Copenhagen, and a couple days after I saw them, I was on Facebook in the bottom right corner of the screen. I saw Guns N' Roses Jam audition for a cover band in Denmark, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I clicked on it, and they had this picture of Slash and like holding a guitar, and they're like, "Are you our next Slash?" and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. And I messaged the guy. I was like, what does he wear? Does your Slash wear a wig? And they're like, yes, he wears a wig and he wears a hat. We basically dress up as Guns N' Roses. And I was like, that's kind of creepy, but I was like, okay. And I went for it, and I got the gig, and I still am doing it to this day. So yeah, Guns N' Roses Jam. So of course we only play Guns N' Roses songs, and I would say we're pretty serious, and we have a pretty good following here in Denmark. And I think in general in Europe, cover bands are huge. There's a huge market for them out here. So I'm pretty busy with that, and I've always been I've always had the rock and roll background. So I mean, I love it. It's really weird, and I feel kind of like ashamed sometimes because I have like 2 degrees in classical music. Like, hey man, how's it going, man? Man, you just crushing gigs out there, all Bach and all that. It's like, no, I'm playing a lot of Guns N' Roses, but it's really fun, man. I absolutely love it, and I practice and then I do all that stuff, all the classical stuff. But the electric guitar is definitely, as you can see behind me, it's kind of like my thing. But I also play in a Danish rock band, an original band, and I guess the English translation would just be Skarnet. So we're a hard rock Danish band with singing Danish and everything. And I've been in that band for a year and a half, and we're releasing an album October 30th. Name drop. What's up?
Right. Link in the description.
Link in the description. Like hashtag. No, I'm kidding. But yeah. So like I'm really busy with all that stuff, and then every now and again I'll get together with these fine gentlemen, and we'll just kick each other's asses, and then for one day, and then we'll play some gigs.
Every now and once a year-ish.
Yeah.
Once a year. Yeah. So.
Well, what about you guys?
So I've been, as far as solo stuff, in the last month, I've really been trying to get out of a rut, I think. So I'm working on a DMA at the moment. Finally done with coursework, which is great. I'm working on a solo program to finish that up. And so I've got the Ascensio, and I have a set of Koshkin pieces, which are a big change of pace from what I normally do. And so I've just been trying to do something else lately. But every time I go to pull up something, I started working on a little bit of easier merits, just because I like the pieces, which is a great reason to play music.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I start working on that, I'm like, well, I should be focusing on this stuff. Gotta do this stupid school thing, which is true to an extent. But I got myself into it. So I've kind of found an outlet lately of just trying to plan and brainstorm stuff for the trio, just because it's. I don't know, that I get really excited about that because I've had friends who are musicians and really complimentary about my playing, and are honest with me when it's not good, but they're generally like, no, you're a good guitarist. But one guy in particular, actually he wrote us a piece the last time that we toured, Jacob Johnson, and he said something to me one day. We were just hanging out, and he goes, yeah, you're a good guitarist, but I listened to your trio, and the Kirk in the trio is way better than the Kirk that plays solo music. I'm like, yeah. So like, and that's exactly what you want, the kind of chemistry in an ensemble.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been a little bit of, I don't know, an energizing project lately. So we're now planning a little farther out than we normally would, just to try and avoid kind of the rubble after the pandemic, when everything kind of opens back up, so we don't have to fight with all the other groups. But we're also working on commissioning a new piece cooperating with another trio, and the details of that are kind of still getting figured out. But we did decide, like, with everything going on, we're going to try and work specifically with a black composer, because one, like, that you don't hear music by black composers performed nearly as often as other music. And then on top of that, I didn't realize this until I looked into it, but I have not been able to come up with more than 2 examples of pieces for guitar ensemble by a black composer. There's one by a composer named Thomas Flippen, who is a guitarist. There's one someone just texted me last night, and the name is escaping me.
Oh, that's actually kind of sad to think about that, because I'm like thinking, it's like, now that you say that, it's like, German, Spanish descent, maybe French, Cuban, again Spanish. Yeah, the guitar is really geared in a lot of Latin music, and then you obviously have the European, aspect of it as well. So wow, yeah, I've never, black composers, period, though.
There are some amazing black composers out there. It's just,
right,
and it's so easy to find a composer that's never written for guitar, let alone guitar ensemble.
Right.
Let alone guitar trio.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And so, like, it's a cool niche that we have as a trio. And so, like, we're working on that. I'm talking to a couple of composers about that, but it's all kind of up in the air at the moment. But then I started reaching out a little bit about ensemble music for, like, school ensembles, just because there's not a lot of that at all either.
Sure, yeah.
And I can't name a single piece that would be appropriate for, like, anyone that's, like, below high intermediate level, middle schoolers, high schoolers in a class. And so I'm hoping that I can get some composers on board with writing things for school programs.
Cool. Jeff, how about you? Oh, I'm sorry, were you not done?
No, you're fine.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
We have another trio thing, but we have a composer that reached out to us actually during our last tour. I think we were driving to or from Maryland. We were driving up to Maryland for a concert. And, like, my phone just dinged, and I looked at it, and I was like, why is this person sending us a message right now? And I opened it, and he's like, hey, I have this guitar trio that, like, no one's premiered yet. Like, would your group premiere? Like, yes. Like, I hope it's not hard, but yes. Turns out it's really, really hard.
Oh, so. Then you get the music, and it's whoo-wee, I tell you.
Oh, it'll be so much fun.
Yeah, it'll be cool, but
yeah,
it'll be a while before we can actually play that.
We'll put some teasers out. No, so let's see here. These 2 MFers left Denver in 2017. Since then, I had another year left on my master's because I did a dual concentration in guitar and composition.
Oh.
So I graduated in 2018, and since then, my solo work has really it fell off almost immediately after I graduated, and I'm not proud to say that, but the pandemic has given me a lot of time to really think about what I want for guitar, and I want to play some more solo stuff. So I've decided to, of course, pick up the hardest music in the repertoire. I'm learning Rodrigo's Tres Piezas. So that's oodles of fun. On top of that, I'm still playing ensemble stuff. During that time, I was playing with another guitarist who was here in town, and I was playing with a flutist. I think I really kind of am more of an ensemble player than a solo player. I'm decent at solo, but, like, I think there's a ceiling for sure on my skill level where I can do anything up to a certain point, just like it comes to me so naturally. But anything past that point, I've got to work so hard at.
Yeah.
And I hate that feeling. So, it's nicer to play a bunch of ensemble stuff where the music is just below my ceiling, and we can crank out a bunch of stuff. And also, I get way more gigs doing ensemble than I do getting solo. So, yeah,
cool. So we've had a lot of awesome discussions today, and I want to before we close out here, I want to ask one humorous question, if I may. I'm sure that you all have had your interesting conversations about your right hand and your nails, right? So I'm always having to explain why my nails are so long on my right hand. And I always get, the looks of disgust. Like, why is your thumbnail so long? Like, you have better groomed nails than I do, and I am a woman. I get that a lot. One story comes up to mind here, and I want to ask each of you if you've had similar discussions with friends or family or strangers for that matter. I was a freshman, and I also started at a community college before I finished my undergrad. And I was in it was like an English 100 level class, freshman year. It's like my first semester. Had these long nails. This girl sits next to me. She was a cute girl. She was attractive. And she said to me, "Do you do crack?" and I was like really put off by that, because I was just like, why is she asking me this? And she sat on my right side and obviously on the right hand. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you ask this, a total stranger, that? Like, do I look like I do drugs? And I was genuinely like curious. I was like, why would you ask me that? Like, no. She's like, you have nails like you would use for cocaine, and I'm just like, oh, and I put two and two together, and I was like, no. And then I explained it. I said, no, I'm a guitar player, and I, play with my nails, nylon string
drugs, but I'm a guitar player.
And if I could just say, this is how you know that this person has never done drugs, because like using a fingernail has got to be the least efficient method, because like sticking stuff in there. But plus it's a pinky anyways. Like, you're not using the other. Have you ever tried sticking anything with your thumbnail? Actually,
Jesus,
boogers, Jeff.
Yeah, I always say they have two great purposes. Is the fact that it's really good for scratching my head and really making great tone on a guitar.
and if anyone asks, usually I'm met with like, oh, well, why don't you use a pick? My response is I go from using one pick to having 4 picks. So
yeah, exactly. Wow, what about you guys? Have you ever had those encounters where you have to explain why you have this weird grooming?
I thought that I had like the best story for that, but it's pretty similar to yours, Justin. It was, although instead of being in like a college classroom and being a cute girl, it was like this kind of sketchy guy in kind of a sketchy situation.
Was he cute?
Yeah, he was all right.
Wasn't my type though.
But like I didn't know him at all, and he just walks up and like kind of like hush hush, like there were people around. He walks up and he just goes, "Hey man, you into coke?" And I was like, "No." He goes, "Okay," and he walked away. And I was like, was he just like offering me? Like, how generous of him, but no thank you. And I didn't put it together as quick as you did. So this was like an hour or two later. I was just like, I looked at I probably like scratched myself and I was like, nails. That's what I was.
I don't really have like a story like that. I mean, people ask about it all the time, especially if they don't know me. But I'll say 2 quick things. First, Kirk has the biggest thumbnail I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I noticed when I started playing in a trio with him, I was like, what is that? And then Jeff has a beautiful right hand. There's something about his nails. There's something about your nails, man. It's like, what do you do with it?
I don't know. I'm not there's 2 things that I know that I am exceptionally better at than most people, and it's my sense of direction and my tone production. And I'm only so confident about the tone production because I've been told by so many great guitarists in master classes and auditions and lessons that were just like, don't do anything to your right-hander tone. And it's one of those things I just never had to work at. So again, like, I just count myself lucky and blessed in that regard, because it's really the left hand that I have to really work at. So.
Well, this has been really, really great. In closing here, is there anything that we should be on the lookout for? I mean, I know the pandemic's kind of caused some issues there, but as far as your guys' projects, any big things for the future to be on the lookout for?
Well, we've got that one recording from our last tour that we kind of have put together, one of the commissions that I sent you. So feel free to share that on
Okay,
here.
all the links will be down in the description.
Cool.
Awesome.
And then for people watching, if I should probably clear this with you, Justin. Like, if people are interested in contributing to helping us support a composer writing ensemble music, or specifically Black composer writing ensemble music, we are more than happy to take contributions to.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, I fully support that 100%.
So yeah, if anybody's watching and is interested in supporting that, send us a message on Facebook, facebook.com/DNT Guitar.
All right.
Yeah, and we'll work that out.
Very, very cool. Well, guys, I would really like to thank you each individually for being on the Just Music podcast. This has been a lot of fun. Again, you guys are like the first time I've ever talked to classical guitarists. You know, I know classical guitarists for us being at a younger age, a younger generation, it's hard to come by because we're just, again, a rare breed almost in that sense. But again, thanks a lot for being on, and I really appreciate you guys talking to me, and I've enjoyed this a lot.
Thanks.
Dude, thanks for having us. It was a really good time. Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Well, great. I wish you all the best of luck in your future endeavors and all of your upcoming projects.
Thank you, man.
Seeing more episodes of this in the future, too.
All right. Take care now.
Yeah, you guys be safe.
All right, y'all. I hope you really enjoyed the episode. I got a lot out of talking with the boys from the DNT Guitar Trio. It was a super fun time, but make sure that you check out all of the other episodes on the playlist for all of the Just Music podcast episodes, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.